evening, everybody. Engle here for TGI Sports Talks, college sports huddle, mostly football, mostly basketball, a little bit of baseball. We're going to be transitioning, obviously, from basketball, which we'll still talk about a little bit tonight, to football, a little bit of baseball. We like to keep the baseball guys happy, and I'm interested as we get closer to College World Series. But we'll be heading back into football, and maybe, as I said last week, we'll take a little hiatus once we get to the dead of summer. We'll see. But there's still plenty to talk about, and we'll do that tonight. We'll talk about the transfer portal opening back up. We'll talk about a little bit of Michigan news, I guess. We'll talk about the portal in basketball as well. Some coaching news in basketball with Mark Pope becoming the new Kentucky head coach since we were last on. And I want to talk about Brian Kelly's comments about NIL and college football. And maybe we'll talk some draft news, whatever you guys want to talk about, we'll go into. Shows might go an hour now, depending on what we have for participation and what's going on that day or that week, I should say, in college sports. So we'll see how it goes each week. I wanted to say welcome to everybody watching us on TGI Sports Talk, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You'll also catch us at midnight tonight on the Roku channel, the Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel, and we'll replay the show 9 o'clock Saturday morning. And we've got repeats of our shows every night at midnight, just so you know. And I pick and kind of choose what we want to put up. So tonight we'll have this show repeated at noon on the Roku channel. Get that downloaded because it's some great stuff. And also welcome to everybody watching on Let's Talk Sports on their YouTube platform tonight. Lots of great content on both of those outlets. So please check them out. Thumbs up, DDH, by the way. Ralph Williams, quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. He does some great stuff over there in the Pittsburgh area and nationwide. And in specifically, the Sports Corner that he does every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on WBVP radio with Smokin' Jim Frazier. So check that out. My thanks again to last week's guest on our reboot of One-on-One with Keith Engle, my interview show. We did it replacing the Major League Baseball update last week. It will not happen that way going forward. Starting next Friday, the 26th, we will be live on Friday mornings, 9 a.m., replacing the Are You Serious show, which, again, just kind of ran its course. Nothing against anybody there. Ran its course for me anyway. We'll be doing interviews every week, and we've got in the coming weeks Tim Worley, former Steeler and Georgia Bulldog great. We've got Brian Holloway, former Patriot, outstanding Patriot offensive lineman. We've got Buddy Biancalana, World Series hero with the Kansas City Royals in 1985. He's got some new things going on he wants to chat about as well. We've got Billy Martin Jr. coming up very soon. We'll talk about his dad. We'll talk about Billy's life and his father's life in baseball, which is certainly very colorful and an interesting conversation. Kevin Mensch, former Texas Ranger and Milwaukee Brewer anyway. And I know Kevin might have had another stop or so. We'll have him on. We've got some hockey players coming on. We got some Olympians coming on, football, baseball. I just talked to Thomas Henderson, chatted with Thomas Henderson the other day. I believe we'll have him on very soon. Just, again, a bunch of people that will make happen, and we'll have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun with these interviews, and I hope you enjoy them as well. And my thanks to Chris F. Grave for helping with some of these interviews, if you will. He got Marty Cordova, who I don't think I thanked Marty. I've mentioned the show we started last week. We had Marty Cordova, former Rookie of the Year with the Twins, on last week. So anyway, that's just what we got coming up. No show this week on Friday. Just a quick housekeeping, as I've got some oral surgery to get done. We will make every attempt to do the Major League Baseball update, though, at 3 p.m. Lots to talk about since we didn't really do an update last week. Good evening, Dave Guyette. big Yankee fan. The Yankees are swooning a little bit. Sticking to the college theme, though. Dave is a big Syracuse Orangeman fan. A couple nice transfers for the Syracuse basketball team. And we'll see if Autry can have a better year in year 2. Better than I thought it would be this year for Syracuse, by the way. And also the football team with a new head coach. So we'll see what happens there. Daniel Barry, Sports Highlights. Yo to you. How are you doing? Check out all the stuff, all the great posts. Again, if there's anything specific you want to push, Daniel, you feel free to put it in the comments, and we'll certainly put it up as we do for any of the shows, the groups that pop into my show and participate, even say hi. And certainly those that allow me to share the content with them, with their groups. I certainly appreciate that. Chris F. Grave, good evening. Speaking of college players, the NFL draft is tomorrow. No, it's next week. The NFL draft is next Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. But Joe Alt is the son of legendary John Alt. Looking to get picked up from Notre Dame. Who's John? He didn't play with the who is John Alt? Not Joe Alt. I know Joe Alt from Notre Dame. Probably going to be a top 10 pick. Started as a tight end at Notre Dame, and they moved him to offensive tackle. Why do I think Joe Alt played with the... I'm wrong. He didn't play with the Blue Jays, did he? No. No, not Joe Alt. John Alt. I'm looking up the wrong guy. I'm like, boy, that looks a lot like his son. John Alt. John Alt. Lineman with the Chiefs. Who else? Chiefs from 84 to 86. 84 to 96, excuse me. First round draft pick in the NFL. Born in Stuttgart, Germany. One of the best interviews I had was with somebody who was born in Germany, Chris, and it has a tie into the college football huddle here. It was Uwe von Schamann, the former place kicker with the Sooners, actually went on to kick in the NFL with the Dolphins. I can't remember who else. Kick was the Dolphins and somebody else, but we had a great interview. And it was a very, very entertaining. He was a very entertaining guy, Uwe von Schamann, former great kicker with the Sooners. Although we had an interesting story about an Ohio State game with him. So I don't remember John Alt. That's a very interesting fact. So thanks for bringing that up. He was a first-round pick, number 21 out of Iowa, and he played all of his career, all 12 years, with the Chiefs. Great. Good catch, Chris. Thanks for sharing that. Chris is a wealth of knowledge, and he and I both have an affinity, I think I want to say. Affinity. We like to go back in time. I'm very nostalgic, right? And we're going to do that. What I like to do on these college football huddles too, and even the sports huddle in general, is we may start to do, and you can tell me what you'd like to talk about once we get out of the transfer portal and there's not a lot to talk about, still wrapping up the end of the basketball season and still talking about some baseball. And I haven't had a chance to really get into it. I wanted to turn this camera. I got this other camera going on this. Unbelievable. I want to talk about things like, the greatest college running backs of all time, and go through a list and rank them ourselves. Quarterbacks, wide receivers, offensive linemen, and maybe we pick one a week and do it through the summer times when the conversation is slow. Kenny Gifford, good evening. Kenny's not sure what time of day it is. There's a lot of reasons for that, but great to have you with us, by the way. Kevin Mitchell is watching. Kevin Mitchell, one of the great interviews I did. Kevin, and I interviewed Kevin in a golf course, a clubhouse. Kevin, great to have you with us. And I'm so happy to have you with us. Ex-Met, Giant, Padre, Mariner. Kevin had one of the great seasons ever out there in San Francisco, important member of the 86 World Champions. Great to have you with us, Kevin. And I really appreciate the time you spent with me here a couple of years back now. I think it was a couple of years back. Actually, it might have been last year. Actually, when I was I started to do a few interviews again. I think I might have done Kevin last spring, and we got him right off the golf course. So that is a dedicated individual. It is great to have you with us. So great, good. Again, you never know who's going to pop into the TGI Sports Talk. I love it. James Martin, good to have you with us. Just got off the North. What are we calling that show now? Northeast Professional Sports Show, but we're still going to be changing. Or I'm sorry, it appears we'll be changing the name, or they will be changing the name of the Northeast Streaming Sports Network to a national brand, because we've really spread out beyond that. We've got shows all over the country. Jim Barrier with us. JJ McCarthy's not a top 10 quarterback. Thanks and bye. Good to have you with us tonight, Jim. Listen, I'm up in the air on JJ McCarthy. He could be the best quarterback in this draft. Listen, his numbers aren't there because Michigan didn't run that kind of offense. But he's a winner. And you saw in the semis and the finals what he can do. I don't want the Patriots, my team, to take a quarterback with the third pick. I've said that over and over. I want to take Marvin Harrison Jr. Get a quarterback later. But if I'm going to take a quarterback, I may very well want J.J. McCarthy. I want to get down here because I see Kevin said something. Thank you. He says, I appreciate it. And I'm glad you appreciate it. Get your story out there, which you certainly do a fine job of yourself. I've seen some videos of Kevin on the golf course. Again, we love it when these guys come in and pop in and just say hi. So we're showing you this show is everywhere, and you never know who's going to pop in. Kevin, I can't remember where Kevin went to. You grew up in California, so I'm wondering who your favorite college team is at this point. We've got a lot of UCLA fans here. If Mr. Fuller is here, we've got Notre Dame fans. We've got Michigan fans. We've got Ohio State fans. And one thing we have a lot of is SEC fans. So in any event, where are we here? John DeLon, how are you, buddy? Speaking of SEC fans, what's Ovi? Did I say Uvi? You know, Ovi, I think, and if I'm not mistaken, I said his name wrong, so I guess it is Ovi von Schaman. And I said Uvi a couple of times, and I feel bad. And Ovi, if you're watching, like one of my other ex-interviews, Kevin Mitchell's watching, I profusely apologize, and I blame it on my Perth education. Ovi von Schaman. He was a great interview, guys. Go back in the archives and watch that interview. I had a lot of fun doing that interview with him. The draft is next week, yes, as I pointed out to Chris. He said Canada. You know, maybe the CFL draft is tomorrow, and Chris is a little mixed up. I don't know. Who's going number one in the CFL draft? By the way, speaking of drafts, I'm going to continue with the comments. We're going to kind of ping-ponging around today, a little like our stream of consciousness show. WNBA had their draft the other night, and of course, Caitlin Clark went number one to the Indiana team, and there's this uproar. And Jameel Hill kind of started it, talking about there being this gender bias because she's only going to be making $76,000 her first year, and I think she tops out. Their rookie contract is 3 years, around $350,000 or $380,000. Don't hold me to those numbers, but it's in the 300s, I think, for 3 years. I could be even a little high. But she wants to make it a gender thing. The reason they're not making the same money in the WNBA, Jameel, is because there's no money to be given out. There's no big TV contract. The stands are not packed to the rafters. Again, Caitlin, and maybe Caitlin Clark will help change that. I don't know. There's a lot of great players in the WNBA. She's going to be playing against really good teams full of really talented women, where in college, you know, might be the best player on the floor every night or most nights. That's not going to be true every night in the WNBA. So I'm sure that the Fever have already been whoever they're. I don't even know where they played. ESPN, ESPN2. But please let's not start this whole thing up again. If there was money available to pay Caitlin Clark the same way a rookie gets paid going into the NBA, she would be getting it. There's no money available, guys. I mean, when you don't have $1 billion TV contract, you can't fill the stands. Watch Bill Burr. Bill Burr, I love Bill Burr. He's got a bit he does about the WNBA that is so freaking funny. We can get into that tonight if you want to. Good evening to Rick Sherlock. He is looking forward to an interview with a Georgia Bulldog. We've had a couple Georgia Bulldogs on. One, Matt Robinson sticks out, former quarterback with the Bulldogs back in the 70s. I think I had somebody else on. I can't remember who it was. Maybe I'm thinking of Vikings. Rick's a Viking and a Viking professional football fan and a Bulldog college football fan. And he alludes to, as I mentioned, on the 26th, next Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, we'll have Tim Worley, former Georgia standout and Pittsburgh Steeler running back, also played with the Bears, on the show. Ricky Williams, top all-time running back. I'll give you that. My number one, well, maybe will surprise you. I don't know, but he played at a different time. Well, not that far off. Well, he's still probably 20 years ahead of Ricky. Archie Griffin, to me, is the greatest running back of all time in college football. Back-to-back Heismans. The game was different, obviously, in the 70s. Quarterbacks weren't winning all the time. So, be interesting. I like that. I guess without diving into this ahead of time, James, I would agree that Ricky would probably be in my top 5. Yeah, I'm a little different than a lot of people. I've got Archie number 1. I've got Archie in the top 5 all-time players in college football, by the way. And I know he doesn't play in the SEC, so that's probably going to be met with some derision by John DeLong. We'll see. And again, Kevin, didn't mean to mess you up. I did mention that earlier. Again, great to have Kevin with us, former Met, and a great interview we had just a year ago. Check it out in the archives. Back It Up Binge Podcast. Check out his stuff. Good to have you with us, JB. Orioles on a good roll, but that's not the topic of conversation tonight. College sports is. Let's see what John's got here for me. Dental surgery. You get punched in the mouth for making lawyer jokes throughout your life again. I got to tell you, John DeLong and I often get into it a little bit with some of the, the controversial topics in college football, but I like John. I really do. And I enjoy his sense of humor. He always leaves me laughing. And I say on all my shows all the time, and Rick, John, I know you popped into the Sunday Stream of Consciousness a few times too. This is where you normally pop in. I tell Rick and I tell everybody, Kenny, people that I get into it pretty good with sometimes on these shows. It's just for fun. I'm having a good time, and I believe what I believe. I go by the Billy Packer axiom of I'm sometimes I'm sometimes wrong, but never in doubt. That's me. I'm very strongly opinionated. And at the end of the day, though, we part friends no matter how much we go at it. I'm friends with everybody when we get off this show. Unless you make fun of my head like one guy did, and I had to ban him. And I don't take offense to anything. Nick Bodkins from the Bodkins Show on Let's Talk Sports does some great stuff. Check out Nick's shows. Nick's on almost every night of the week. Nick, you got some stuff you want to plug? Please put it in the comments. Nick says Pat's taking Drake May. Listen, you're probably right. It's either May or Daniels. Whoever the Commanders don't take, they'll probably take. I do not want that. More quarterbacks are misses than are hits in these spots. And if you miss, and there's a lot of detractors for Drake May and Drake May's game. There's detractors for all of these quarterbacks. Listen, I'm a guy, take the best guy in a draft, especially when you need as much as the Patriots need. And quarterbacks are no good if you don't have any weapons for them. And the Patriots don't have any real weapons other than maybe Kendrick Bourne if he's healthy. They hold out for hope for Thornton and whatnot. But take Marvin Harrison Jr., and he's the best player in the draft. He's a surefire Hall of Famer in my mind. And take a quarterback later. I can get Michael Penix in the second round, most likely, although I've seen him in the last week or so moved up to 13. You can get a Spencer Rattler, whose game and his maturity have improved over the last 2 years in South Carolina. But the guy I'd wait for, because I would take Harrison, I would take a couple of offensive linemen, and in the fourth round, I can get a guy named Michael Pratt. And I'm going to tell you again, you watch if Michael Pratt doesn't become a very effective NFL quarterback wherever he is. It may not happen overnight. But I'm going to tell you, remember the name Michael Pratt. Get him in the fourth round. Chris, Caleb Williams out of USC looking to get picked by first overall, probably for sure, unless they pull an Eli Manning, or I should say an Archie Manning, and say we're not coming. But I'm a little surprised that the Bears just blowing it up and starting all over again. But Caleb Williams, USC, getting picked up first overall reminds me a bit of a young Jay Schrader when he was throwing to Bo Jackson. I would hope the Bears would look for a better comparison than Jay Schrader, Chris. If I remember right, they took one of the worst beatings in an AFC championship game ever up in Buffalo, the Raiders, with Jay Schrader as their quarterback. He wasn't a good player, man. Chuck Foreman, Kenny Gifford points out another. He wasn't a Georgia Bulldog, but he was one of another Rick's favorites. We interviewed Chuck sometime last year. So, I keep thinking it's been 2 or 3 years since we've done these interviews, but I did do about 10 of them probably last year when Dan Harris, the late, great Dan Harris, was doing some of the legwork trying to get these guys for me. And I picked up that task again myself. And, I think we've got a pretty good roster for the next month and a half anyway. And then we'll start, once we get through the next couple of shows, we'll start again trying to get guys in. And actually with the guys Chris has got coming in, I've probably got guys through early in June, probably. So anyway, Chuck was another great interview. One of of all the interviews I've done, maybe the singular best moment. We had a little, a few good men moment when we got talking about the Hall of Fame and Chuck, by the way, is a great player. To tie this back to college football a little bit, Chuck was a great player at the University of Miami before they were the University of Miami, if you know what I mean. But we were talking about the Hall of Fame, and he was talking kind of calmly. And I don't know what the criteria is to get in. I don't know what they look for. And I said, "You believe you belong in the Hall of Fame?" And he was like, "You're goddamn right. I think I belong in the Hall of Fame." Yeah, so we had a little few good. It was a great moment, and Chuck does, in my mind, by the way. Chuck Foreman belongs in the Hall of Fame. Not a long, huge number compiling career, but the guy kind of transformed the game in the way he played. So I think Chuck Foreman does belong. And a great college player, by the way. Chris Efron says, Kevin Mitchell, between yourself and Glenn Braggs, I can't remember another Reds player. I forgot about the Reds to play sleeveless. Attaboy. Ted Kluszewski did, by the way, back in the 50s and early 60s. But in the near term, I don't know. Glenn Braggs is another guy, Chris, that I think I may have reached out to way back when about an interview, and I may go back there again as well. In fact, I was just reading a book, Lou Pinella's autobiography, and he talks a lot about Glenn Braggs, one of his favorite players. And I forgot that Kevin played for the Reds as well. Ove von Schamen, a great kicker for my Fins. Yes, he was a great kicker with Miami. I keep thinking he played with another pro team, and I can't think of who. We had a great time talking about Barry Switzer, Don Shula, who he played for in college and then in the pros. Some of the great, some of those great Sooner teams. And that's when college football was college football, by the way. And Ove came over from Germany with his mother around 17 years old. So anyway, a lot of fun. Dip Botkins, your girl Caitlin Clark. Listen, it's funny. She's become a very polarizing figure too. All of a sudden, people either love her or they want to deride her. I don't have any feeling one way or another on Caitlin Clark. I do not think Caitlin Clark is necessarily this giant savior for the WNBA. She did wonders. And Kenny, I told you I had done a mea culpa here on this show 2 weeks ago. I was wrong about women's college basketball and the popularity exploding. And it has been building. And I missed the train. And they had a great postseason this year. Great number of eyeballs watching. And a lot of it was because of Caitlin Clark, but not just because of Caitlin Clark. There was a lot of great stories. A lot of them revolved around her. So we can put most of it at her feet. But the WNBA, by the way, doesn't have nearly the popularity that the NCAA women have. I talked a minute ago, Nick, and I don't know if you were with me, but, Jamil Hill, the former reporter for ESPN, they fired her for some reason a few years back. But she's trying to make this into a gender issue that, there's a gender bias that she's only making $76,000 this year, which is probably a pay cut from Iowa. But, I mean, where's the TV contract and where are the people in the stands to be able to pay her anything more than what they're paying her? They have these rookie contracts for a reason in the WNBA because they can't afford to pay their top players anymore. It's just a fact of life. You can't just, if you don't have money because you're not collecting money from TV revenues or people in the stands, that's where the money comes to pay people. Maybe Caitlin Clark will have an effect on that. Maybe she won't. She's playing against a lot of great players and she's got, before you anoint her the best player ever to play in the WNBA, let's let her play a game. Because there's a lot of great players like Sue Bird, I mentioned, Cheryl Swoops, Tarazi, Tarazi, I think is how you say her name, right? Rebecca Lobo, Lisa Leslie. There's a bunch of great players who she's got to earn her way up. Yeah, I mean, again, so what? How much, again, I'm not sure the context of where you mean that. I mean, you're accurate. Those guys, look at the minimum in the NFL, the minimum in MLB, the minimum in the NBA is certainly way higher, probably 4 times higher, 5 times higher maybe, than what she's going to make in the WNBA. But that's irrelevant. There's money there to pay those guys because there's billion-dollar TV contracts and the stands are full every week or every night. For the most part, successful franchises. You're going to pay her based on speculation that you're going to increase revenues? If you only have this amount of revenue coming in, you can't pay your best player that much money. I mean, I don't get it. There's no bias against women. There's just no money. Watch Bill Burr. I love Bill Burr's bit on this. And I think if you Google Bill Burr and WNBA and you get this part of his stand-up, it's just awesome. And this is where I get my reputation as a woman hater, apparently. Because I just speak common sense. They said the draft viewership was up 40%. From what, though? She was funny. Caitlin Clark was funny on Saturday Night Live last week when she just did a bit. She said she'd be petrified if she ever had to host. But she gave a couple of... she was giving it to Michael Che, who had ripped the WNBA a few times. And he actually ripped women's basketball in general. They're jokes, guys. They're jokes. But he had a couple of really funny lines that they played. Watch the clip. It's funny. But again, what the viewership's up 40% from what? Let me check it out. This is college related, guys. So we will, because I got a feeling John DeLong's like draft 24. Let's see what I can find out. 40% of what though, right? I work with numbers. I'm in sales. 40% off of what? 40% increase on what? I need to know numbers. Let's find out. I don't doubt. Listen, there's going to be a bump in the ratings. Is it going to warrant her getting paid more than that? I don't think so. All right. So that 40% bump, by the way, was a bump to 2.45 million people. There's that many people watching CNN, for Christ's sakes. I'm sorry. That was uncalled for. Viewership is peaking. So the 40% increase, they were 1.7 million. That was in MSNBC, CNN viewership numbers. Bill Burr does great jokes about why WNBA. I've been talking about that since the top of the show when I brought it up, John. So thank you, John, and I. This is a couple of times in a row now on the same page. Bill Burr is one of the funniest stand-ups out there. If you haven't seen Bill Burr, Google his stuff. He's hilarious. Some people will hate him. Funny's always funny. I laugh at jokes. Listen, I think one of the funniest guys out there is Bill Maher, and I disagree with a ton of almost all of his politics. He's funny. Funny's always funny. Bill Burr is one funny guy, and he has a great take on the WNBA. It's hilarious. Nick Clark in Boston, good 1-2 punch. Sky with Cardosa and Reese. How you supposed to score on the inside? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I'll be very, very honest with you. I don't follow WNBA. Maybe I'll follow a little closer now because I do have an interest in Caitlin Clark. I don't. Again, I'm not one of the people who gets over the moon about her. She was great for college basketball, great for college in general, not just women's college basketball in general. I fell on my sword a few weeks ago over this topic. But Nick, I don't know. I know Nick follows a lot of the sports down there. You're in Missouri, if I remember right. Again, speaking of Missouri, I learned to say it that way from one of my other favorite interviews, who unfortunately passed away here in the last year plus, maybe. Mark Littell, former great reliever with the Kansas City Royals. He's from Missouri, and he explained that to me. But who do you root for one of these teams, Nick? Again, I'll be quite frank. I'm gonna have to get up to speed on WNBA. My favorite time of the show, when our man on the grassy knoll, John DeLong, has conspiracy theory time. ESPN is pushing for more money for female athletes and will be paid for the raises to of course. And it will be paid for with raises to your cable bill. I wouldn't say, I mean, that's a fact of life in any sport, John. So I don't know that it's a conspiracy or even specific to the women, the WNBA. I mean, if they decide they want to pay for more for the rights, then there's more money to pay people. But again, whether we're talking about the WNBA, the college football playoff, the SEC football contract, the Big Ten football contract, the NFL contract, when they pay more money for stuff, we pay for it. Everybody. So unless you're watching, and I told Kenny this one time when he said, when they start putting it to streaming, which, by the way, a lot of stuff is going to go to, you're going to start finding a lot of this stuff on ESPN Plus. So if they don't raise your normal cable bill, as John mentioned, I subscribe to ESPN Plus. It's already up. I started paying, it was $4.99 a month. It's now $10.99 a month 2 years later. I can get it as part of a Disney and Hulu bundle or some nonsensical thing. I don't know. But you're paying for it. So unless you're watching all your sports on a rabbit ears or an antenna outside your house, which I do have a digital antenna in my house. I don't watch exclusively on that, but there's some things I like. I get like 50 channels on it. But you're not going to get a lot of sports. So unless you're watching your sports that way, you're paying to watch sports all the time. We know this. I hope we know this. And yeah, if ESPN ups the rights, they pay for broadcasting WNBA so that they can pay more to their star players, including Caitlin Clark, I suppose, then yeah, we're going to pay for it. And in Columbus, we haven't seen in a while. My love for Ohio State is disgusting. Archie over Maurice Claret. Yes. And you too, Ed, are an Ohio State fan. And you know what a great player Archie was. And don't tell me, here's the thing. We always get into these discussions. Well, you didn't do anything in the NFL. Who cares? I'm not talking about the NFL. Great college players. And we'll do this every show. We'll debate running backs, quarterbacks, because we're going to run out of topics, as we get into the summer months here. Hell, I haven't even gotten into the portal, and I don't even care. I'm having a better time with this conversation than I am getting into the damn transfer portal. Archie, that's too funny. And you're an Ohio State fan. So we can debate anybody you want to debate. Wide receivers, quarterbacks. Archie was a better college quarterback than either one of his kids. Barry Sanders for me. This is James. Barry Sanders for me is the number one. It's not just the numbers, though, that matter to me, right? And again, I suppose it's when you grew up. I know, and I love James' take on stuff, and I've told him that as he's become more and more visible on Northeast Streaming Sports. I've praised James, and we teamed up on a debate show that we actually won. We were cheated out of our trophy. But I really have a lot of respect for James' opinion, and I'm glad that he's continuing to do this. But a lot of this is going to be generational and what you grew up watching, right? And that's only natural. That's the way it is in sports. Barry Sanders was a great player. Do not think he's one of the best college running backs of all. Not the best college running back of all time. But I put Barry in my top 5. I don't know. I would put a guy, and listen, I got a couple of surprises for you in my top 20. Ed Marinaro from Colgate. I think it's Colgate. Finished second in the Heisman 1 year. It's a subjective thing. I mean, Tim Tebow and Archie Griffin are 1 and 2. Sometimes I flop the order. Best college football players of all time. Herschel Walker is definitely in the top 5. Nick's got a UFC show tonight. Head kicks and haymakers over there on Let's Talk Sports. What time is that? Nick likes to start his shows. I'm guessing that show's about 9 o'clock. Nick. I love Nick. Nick, you never know what Nick's going to do. Nick is the crazy man of the podcast platforms that he show up on. Bill was on the Pat McAfee show and said quarterbacks and wide receivers are 50-50. That's what I would say. Who, by the way? Bill Burr? Or was it my Bill? I would say that's probably about right. I would say wide receivers hit probably more than quarterbacks today. I mean, look at the draft from just a couple of years ago where the 49ers, they lucked out because they got Mr. Irrelevant. They traded way up and traded after next draft for Trey Lance. How's he doing? How's Wilson doing? How'd Fields, and I still like Fields, but how's Fields make out so far? How's my boy Mac Jones making out? All misses. And the only team that's not still in a crapper is the 49ers because they lucked out with Purdy. I take the best player, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. Just saying. John has a rule. Never draft a quarterback who looks like he needs to eat something. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on. Or don't be the sucker that gets stuck with Drake May. Let someone else make that mistake. Now, again, I'm on the same page. Here I am. This is a very awkward situation for me because I'm on the same page with John, but I want to call John out for having his SEC bias and he's saying the ACC sucks. That's why Drake May is even overrated to the point that he is. But we're on the same page. I don't want to be the guy that makes a mistake on Drake May. I want the sure thing. Either trade out of the spot, and if you trade out of the spot, you're probably not getting Marvin Harrison either. But there are some other really good receivers in this draft, and I'm going wide receiver, offensive line, at least the first. This again, if I was, I do it. Is this what I think they're doing? No. I got a bad feeling they're taking a quarterback. And I would tell you, though, if we're going to take a quarterback, I'm taking J.J. McCarthy. Sorry, Jim Behringer. Over any of these guys. Just saying. Steve Orpello. Did I say hi to you earlier, Steve? I'm sorry. I know I saw a post up there, and I feel like I might have gone right by it. I apologize. Good to have you with us, Steven, up there in Perth, New York. Barry Sanders was phenomenal. But listen, I'm not saying Barry Sanders wasn't a phenomenal running back. And remember, now we're not talking about the NFL. We're talking about college football. I mean, Barry was phenomenal in college, as James pointed out, 2,600 yards in one season, which makes, I'm guessing, is still a record, right, James? Am I right or wrong? Who else is sticking out here that hasn't popped in and said hi? Robert Butler, I see you lurking. Dave Wilfor, Sue Russick. Good to have you guys with us, wherever you're watching. I can't really see. These are all Facebook people, I guess, because I can't see the viewers. We got a bunch of people on Twitter tonight. That's awesome. The Twitter views have been really, really picking up. And we got a bunch of viewers on Twitter. Haven't seen any comments come through from Twitter. So any of you guys might be watching us tonight on Twitter. If there's a way for you to let me know, I don't think you can comment on the show through Twitter and I'm going to see it. So you can either test it by putting in a comment on there, and I don't think I'll get it like I do on YouTube. I'd like to know. I've never been able to figure this out. Maybe Nick, maybe you know. And if you are watching on Twitter and you get a chance, so just pop over to Facebook and go to Let's Talk Sports. You go to Let's Talk Sports. You can go to TGI Sports Talk, which, again, I guess I would prefer. And make a comment, because I'd like to know whether you can comment from Twitter, because we get a lot of people live. And we get obviously, the great majority of our views come later on, but once I've shared to the groups, the relevant groups. And thank you to all of you who let me share, whether you're a college football group or college basketball group or NFL group or whatever it might be. I thank you for your generosity and let me share and my content with your groups. So anyway, I'm curious about this whole Twitter thing. That's all, whether you can comment from there or not. What do you got here? Number 44, classic line. You damn. It was like a no, I forgot the movie. Christ on a stick, man. Well, how many people did I just offend there? A Few Good Men. It was a Few Good Men moment when I got Chuck Foreman to say, "You're goddamn right, I do." I loved it. Chuck, if you should be watching, we love you. Chris, Camilla Cardoza could get drafted as low as 4th in WNBA. A 6'7" female center. Gee, that's a big girl. Big girl. Here we go. Ed in Columbus, with Bidenomics, Clark's salary can get her a used Honda. He's probably going to, here's the thing. Never mind. Oh, John's a lot of people watching the women's basketball tournament aren't real fans. I'll put the S in there for you. They're virtue signalers who will move on to the next social cause as soon as they get bored with women's basketball. I don't totally disagree, at the risk of infuriating the next commenter here, Kenny Gifford and his wife, Paula. I have said that it's very important for the NCAA women's basketball teams to find a way to continue this momentum. This momentum has been building, and I think there's a few reasons for it. Caitlin Clark is a huge reason. Not just Caitlin Clark, though, but there's been some great storylines around college basketball. LSU. And it started, let's see, this has built up over the last several years, and it exploded this year. I'll give you that. But it has built up from the past Summit Tennessee teams through Gino Auriemma at UConn, slowly getting, some insurgency, but nothing tremendous. The last 4 years, you've had some great stories. You've had Caitlin Clark there 4 years, which is very important. Something the men don't get, at least not on the high-profile teams. You get one and dones. You don't get to build an identity. You don't get to really relate to a player and stick with them for their career. So I think it's important. You have Caitlin Clark, LSU, Angel Reese. South Carolina has been a great story the last 3 years. Winning 2 out of those 3 years, undefeated last year. They've got to have to keep this momentum. There's got to be something that replaces those storylines, or you're going to fade back. Whether it's as pronounced as what John DeLon is signaling here, I don't think this is a social cause necessarily. Well, again, if I listen to Jamil Hill, I guess I would have to think they think it is. And to me, it's a question mark whether those people will move from watching Caitlin Clark in the NCAA to the WNBA. I don't know. I'm going to have to say I'm not putting my reputation on the line. I did that once by saying there's no way the women overtake the men. I got hit in the face with that, right, Kenny? I was thinking he reminds you of Ryan Leaf. Who's that? Drake May? I hope he's not that bad. If the Patriots take him and he's Ryan Leaf, worst case scenario. Ryan Leaf might be the single worst NFL draft pick of all time. Tony Mandrich, Ryan Leaf. You can weigh in, I think, on this, Nick, if you'd like, because Tony Mandrich plays for your team. I know you're a big Packer fan. The Ryan Leaf had a great career at Washington State. Coming into the draft, it was a coin flip. Literally, figuratively. I hate literally. Literally is literally the most misused word in the English language, and I just did it. But figuratively, a coin flip between him and Peyton Manning. All the experts probably split right down the middle on these two guys, which shows you how wrong the experts can be. Oh no, I can't think of a worse number one pick, top two pick, top five pick than Ryan Leaf. It's a cat walking towards the desk. So anyway, that's a good comparison, Kenny. I hope he's not that bad. Ryan Leaf had some issues. Thought he had some talent. Again, a really talented player in college. Led his team to a Rose Bowl, which is not a common day thing. And at Washington State, played for Mike Price up there. They might have had a share of a national championship, if I'm not mistaken, with Michigan. Somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong. Uncalled for, but true. I'm not sure where that one's from. I'm not sure which one that is. The women need more exposure from the networks. NBA supplements to WNBA. Do they? I don't know. Is that true? That's not really a college topic, so I'm not necessarily going to get into that. But you're not wrong. As I said, Caitlin Clark can't make more money than $76,000 if there's, again, here's your pot of money. You can't pay her this much when you only got this much. And John DeLong may be right as well. But when that happens, Kenny, remember, you pride yourself on not paying anything to watch sports. You can't watch the WNBA, I'm pretty sure, unless you're paying money to somebody. If you're paying for cable, you can watch WNBA, which means you're paying to watch sports. And if they increase the only way they're going to get more exposure, how are you getting more exposure? If you're on ESPN, which has plenty of households, you're not going to get on ABC and NBC and CBS. And if they do, they're going to pay money and your cable bill will go up or whatever you pay. If you're paying streaming services, as I do, it's going to go up. I mean, the only way you get around it is to get a digital antenna. Chris, what do you got? Liam Draxel from the University of Kentucky holds the top spot in the NIT Division I men's singles rankings. How far do we go in college tennis on this show? About that far. Oh, God. We can go as far as you want. But I can't go much farther than that. But I am impressed. Chris, you have to have just looked that up, correct? I need to know now, do you follow college tennis closely enough to know that Liam Drexel, first of all, that's his name and how you spell it, goes to the University of Kentucky and holds a top spot in the ITA division, which I do not know what that is, quite frankly, and maybe I should. I need to know if you knew that or you just want to check out college tennis to see how far you can push this conversation. Danny Fuller, welcome. There's our favorite guy out in California. I feel like we were just talking about you for some reason. Danny watched 3 minutes of WNBA draft. He just couldn't get into it. Well, there's a good question. It was up 40% in viewership, up to 2.4 million from, I do the math. I can't do the math. Roughly what? 1.4 million? Is that right? 1.6 million, I guess, last year. That's not a lot of people, guys. I mean, CNN gets that many viewers. Do they? I gotta check it out. Poor John DeLong calls me on this. Number 10 among all cable networks. Third most. Just tell me how many people are watching. Wow, CNN 4.4. That's got to be for the week. 44 million viewers. Wow. There you go. That's better. Daily. Fox News average 1.2. Not even Fox. CNN averages 502,000. So they're killing CNN. They're killing Fox too. The WNBA should join a the WNBA should join an NCAA conference. More money. That's a very good point. I mean, I guarantee you, Caitlin Clark got more money from Iowa. From Iowa. I wanted to talk about, it says John's here. I can't. John, one thing I want to get into tonight is, before we go, is Brian Kelly's comments about NIL, since we're going down this NIL rabbit hole here tonight. Brian Kelly talking about now that we have NIL and unfettered movement in the transfer portal and basically no rules, I can pay you whatever you want to come to my school. He wants there to be salary caps like the NFL has. And basically he talks about how they have several, buckets that people fit into. And they could fit into it depending whether it was their first year, their second year, their third year, whatever. But is one of the coaches can come and go as they please. There's no salary cap for them. They're not tied to their old school. They have no allegiance. They have no loyalties. Is Brian Kelly the guy to be trying to preach some kind of common sense approach to the NIL world? How much money did Caitlin Clark get? So she got, according to the NIL database on 3, Clark had made $3.1 million from the NIL, the fourth most of any college athlete. This was as of April 2nd, 2024. So that's throughout her career at Iowa. So Ed's got a point here. Maybe the WNBA should join a conference. I guess they could start their own conference. I don't think they can actually do that, but I get your point. She's getting a big pay cut. No, I didn't get a $200 TV antenna from Amazon. I've thought about buying one, but I'm not sure if it's worth the money. I've seen those things described as a Sunday ticket on a budget. What I have is a digital antenna. It's in the house. It's only, it's only a little, it's like this size. Let me grab this thing. It's about the size of this folder, right? I move it around the room. I get 50 channels, all local channels, and the local channels all have like 2 or 3 affiliated channels with them. And I paid like, I don't know, $30 for the thing. I've got like, I had 5 of them. Now, something to remember, John, there's three local channels here with a tie to the 3 major network, 4 major networks, just 4 local channels. So that's all you get is the networks and a bunch of regional channels, a bunch of PBS channels. There's a bunch of shopping channels. There's some news, like Newsmax is on there. But you're not getting sports unless it's on the networks, right? There's no DVR capabilities unless you have a TiVo. But I paid $20, and we're really close where I am, not as close as where we are before we moved. So I can get, and again, down here in my basement office, I get like 40 channels. The only place I have one now. When we were in our old house, I had them upstairs, downstairs, in my office, in the basement. And when it rains, you get a little worse reception or whatever. But to me, it depends on what you need. So I don't know why I even got it. I don't remember. Because I liked some of the shows or the TV channels that were on it. You couldn't get like on your cable system. And I don't have cable anymore. I stream everything. But I couldn't get things like, because I'm old, John. I'm an old man of almost 64 now. And I like my old Westerns. And I like my old crime dramas. And I can watch them on Cozy TV and This TV and Heroes and Icons. So that's why I got it. And I enjoyed it. Kenny, back to the running back conversation, thinking of Earl Campbell. I think Earl Campbell was probably in the top. He's in the top 10. So I'll dive into this further. I don't know. Top 5? I would say top 5, maybe. We can always talk about NCAA championship cornhole. We joke, but the NCAA does now have scholarships for a couple of schools. I don't remember who they were. They were out west or the near west. There is cornhole teams and scholarships in a couple of schools. I don't remember who they were. We talked about this a couple of months ago. Oh. Danny, wow, top college football players of all time offense. I hear Dick Butkus was amazing, as well as Jim Thorpe. Butkus played at Illinois. I don't know about him playing offense. I would have to look into that. Great defensive player, obviously. Jim Thorpe was a great college basketball or multi-sport player, obviously. A great Olympian, great football player from Canton, and that's why the Hall of Fame is in Canton. Offensive player of all time. I flip-flop between Tim Tebow and Archie Manning. I really do. There's James. I agree with your take on the Pats needing the best player in the draft, Marvin Harrison. Unfortunately, I don't disagree with that comment. Any of this, right? Unfortunately, I do think they're going to take a quarterback as well. Yes, the record still stands for Barry. Also, he has 2 statues, one in Oklahoma State and the other in Detroit. We're big on statues tonight. Mac was building one for the new coach of the Carolina Panthers earlier tonight. So thank you for that information, James. Listen, I don't want to take anything away from Barry. Barry's a great player. Was a great NFL player. And actually, I always give you guys a documentary. If you haven't seen, and I want to say it's on Prime, there's a documentary about Barry Sanders and a lot of, I think, a great overview of his career. And why he walked away. Scott Mitchell was not happy about that, by the way. We won't get into that because that's not a college topic. But watch that. I think it's called Barry. I'm not positive, and I think it was on Prime. WNBA needs a... Did I? Did you just... Ed, I'm the old guy here. I'm the guy who gets to repeat himself here. Oh, she went third. Who? Oh, what we're talking about. I say that John Gonzalez. All our great sports admins are here. John Gonzalez from the Sports Authorities. Guys, if you have not joined the Sports Authorities, please do it now. Well, after the show's over. 23 minutes. You can go join the Sports Authorities. Great group. John and Greg Rawlings are the two best admins. 1 and 1A because I love both these guys. But I'm going to give John number one. I told Greg earlier he was number two. John, you're number one. Sorry, Greg. But number two is not bad with all the groups that are out there. John runs a great group at the Sports Authorities. John was talking up Rattler the other day. As I mentioned, the Patriots have, if they didn't take a quarterback early, which I agree with James Martin, they probably will, even though I don't agree with it. Rattler is one of the names that has come up for them to take potentially later, second round. I don't think Rattler is going to be around the third round. I would have said before the combine he probably would be, but his reputation has been lifted with this last year at South Carolina, even though they didn't have the record they wanted to have. He had a good year and matured in a lot of people's eyes. And he may have increased his draft stock. I don't think he's a first rounder, but he'll probably go in a second round. Maybe he'll last at the third. John also says the Giants pick I'm never going to say this guy's name. Great pick for the Giants, by the way. If they do this, I think for them to rebuild and start over with a new quarterback, when you've got a $40 million quarterback on your roster that you're never going to be able to move, but has some talent and enough talent to win in the NFL if he can stay healthy and you actually give him some real weapons. I think this guy, Rome, can we call him Rome? And you think they take Rattler in the second round. All right. So you think they do go for the quarterback. And, well, if you take Rattler, you can let him sit behind Jones, I guess, a year, unless you think Rattler's going to play year one. What are you going to do with that $40 million contract, though? That's going to be a noose around your neck if you don't give him a chance to mature. And I know last year was awful. He got hurt. He wasn't playing well before he got hurt, but he didn't have a weapon except Saquon Barkley. And he gotten better every year of his career. I think I've always said this, so we'll tie it back to college football a little bit. I always said that Daniel Jones has gotten it a bad rap because he was overdrafted at number 6. That's not his fault. If Daniel Jones was drafted in the second round until last year, people would have thought he was progressing very nicely into a decent NFL quarterback. I'm not telling you he'll ever be Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, but he's a good player. I appreciate your take there, John. And get there, guys, to the Sports Authorities. John Gonzalez, number one admin in the business. Sorry, Greg. Danny Fuller, I won't completely tear into the WNBA. I'm not tearing into them. There's just nobody watching. Watch Bill Burr, as John DeLon and myself have pointed out a couple times tonight. He won't completely tear into the WNBA, especially when a John Wooden said to watch a women's game and see how basketball is made to be played. That part I agree with. And again, fundamentally, they do play a different game than the men play. They can't play above the rim the way the men do. But I think with the 3-point line and the women getting more proficient and more athletic, shooting 3-pointers and again getting more athletic and being able to play in the air a little bit more. They can't play above the rim, we know, but I feel like some of the fundamentals have gone away. Now you can play very good fundamental basketball to get an open 3-point shot. I always said that about the Golden State Warriors in their heyday. They were fun to watch because they moved the basketball, but unlike the Celtics and the Knicks in their heyday, they moved the basketball to get an easy 2-pointer. Now you move the basketball to get an open 3-pointer. But there's been a lot of people who've always said that, fundamentally, the way the game was designed to be played by John Naismith with his peach basket was probably closer to what the women play. Remember, guys were taking two-hand set shots until the 60s. Can't call up her name. Kenny says, sorry, you can't call up a name, but a senior in high school at 6'2" is a dunking machine. Really? See, now, again, so if you have stars that come behind the Caitlin Clarks and the Angel Reeses, let's see if I can find something, Kenny, just for the hell of it. High school girls basketball dunker. I don't know if I'll get anything. Girl can dunk better than you. She's a sophomore. You say she's a senior. Who's the best dunker? I don't know. I got several names here. These are women, or these are guys. What the hell is this? Who's the greatest girls? Who's the? Yeah, these are all tennis players. So players can dunk. I mean, Brittany Grenier, 18 dunks. Candace Parker, these are in college. While she was at Baylor, she had 18 dunks. Candace Parker, who had 7 dunks. Another great women's player I didn't bring up earlier. Michelle Snow, 3. Fran Bielby from Stanford, 3. I wonder if this is it. This is a video, though. I don't want to play this. Oh, maybe this is it, Kenny.
As a father who works full time, I want to
what's her name?
That even though education and
Toby Fournier. There's a girl who can dunk better than you. It says she's a sophomore. So we'll see. I don't know if that's her or not, Kenny. Does that ring a bell? Toby Fournier. I just watched her dunk in a video. Very impressive. Interesting. Williams, is that what you're saying? Man, maybe it's a different one. This girl was just a dunker. And I think she's a sophomore. I don't know how old this video is. Posted 1 year ago. I guess she could be a senior. Depending on, lag. James Martin, Jamarcus Russell was the worst. I'm an LSU fan. I do know that. You and John DeLon have that in common. So once we get into college football, we're going to have another SEC. Now, James is not an SEC elitist. John relishes the name. I would never give James that moniker. He's far too classy. LSU fan was extremely disappointed in his work ethic. Jamarcus Russell was a bad pick. That's a good, him and Ryan Leaf had very similar careers, I guess. Actually, if I was to look at it, because I don't think Jamarcus Russell ever played for anybody after the Raiders dumped him. And Ryan Leaf got a couple of chances. He got a chance with the Cowboys, and maybe that was his only other chance. But good one. Good one, James. John Gonzalez is back. Ryan Leaf had a drug problem. Mandarich redeemed himself later with the Colts. Theoretically. Yes, I guess he redeemed himself. He never redeemed himself in Green Bay. And I don't know how long a career he had when he was with the Colts. I'll give you that. Ryan Leaf had a lot of problems. I'm going to tell you, Ryan Leaf had drug problems. Ryan Leaf had emotional problems. And Ryan Leaf will tell you, Ryan Leaf, I believe, has cleaned up his life. And I've seen him on a few podcasts. And I'd love to get him on my show and interview him. Because these guys, and a lot of the guys that I talk to in my interviews, have had issues. And the great majority of them are very open about them because they know that theirs is a cautionary tale. And it's one of the things that, I'm glad that they're willing to bring that stuff up. Marty Cordova did this week. Larry Sorensen brought it up and was very open about his issues. Todd Stottlemyre, a few others, great guys, and really recognizing your problem and then telling your story to help others is certainly a worthy endeavor. And I think Ryan Leaf has done a little of that. Hill was fired from, again, I don't think technically ESPN fired her for being a race baiter, Rick, because I think that'd be a problem lawsuit-wise. She may have sued ESPN anyway. I don't know. And I don't know that I'd call her necessarily a race baiter. It's not good. To me, it doesn't matter whether you're black or white. And if you're race baiting, it's never good. But in this case, I think, this is just me, I think she has taken up women's causes much more than she has the race causes, if you will. I can't think of the word I want to use. Racial matters. Although she's, gone down those roads and both. And you've got the platform, and listen, everybody's entitled to their opinion for sure. And some of the things that she talks about aren't incorrect. But when you're sitting here and you're comparing the WNBA and the NBA and why a woman is getting paid $76,000 a year and a rookie going into the NBA is getting millions, it's only because the bucket of money's bigger. Right? I mean, if they're playing on the same team because we had a mixed league, well, then you've got an argument that the glass ceiling is there and the women can only make so much. But the women are held back salary-wise only by the pot of money that's available. And you can't just invent it. Again, if the pot of revenue is this big, you can't get this much. James, as I said, James Martin is also an LSU fan. John DeLon is also an LSU fan, and he brings up Jamarcus Russell as the worst NFL draft pick. And I guess, again, I don't want to compare it to money because guys who got drafted sooner weren't going to have the chance to make that money. But just production-wise, I would say if Ryan Leaf hadn't got a second chance with the Cowboys, he would be the worst. I'll concede Jamarcus Russell to both you and James here. Mickey Delaney, our number one fan in the Northwest, actually with Augustin as well, up there in the great Northwest. Mickey, where have you been? Our big Washington State fan. He roots for both. We've been just kind of deriding your former star quarterback at Washington State, Ryan Leaf, as one of the worst. One of now, because I've conceded Jamarcus Russell was the worst pick. But we talked about him being one of the worst picks. So it's good to hear from you, Mickey. Tough going for you. One of your teams going to the Big Ten. Your other team is going to be in the Mountain West for all intents and purposes. Both teams needed new head coaches, although I love the coach Washington hired. Jed Finch did a great job at Arizona. Before that, he was a quarterback coach in New England. Had done a great job, by the way, with and people forget about this. Did a great job there. Maybe didn't show up until after he left. But he went out to Arizona, did great things there. And now Kellen DeBoer, as we know, has gone to Alabama to replace Nick Saban. And Washington State, who did Washington State hire? I feel like they hired the Utah State. No, that was basketball. Basketball, you had to replace your coach, too. I know you got the Utah State coach. So good run for the basketball team last year. Good run for the football team. This is not in alphabetical order, so how am I supposed to find anything? Who is the new coach at Washington State? Help me out. I'll find it. Don't worry, guys. Bear with me. We got about 9 minutes left, so anything you want to get into. Jack Dickert replaces Ben Arbuckle. Is that correct? No, he's the offensive coordinator. Who the heck did he replace? I guess they aren't going to tell me that here. Anyway, good to have you back, Mickey. It's been a long time since we've seen you, and I was kind of worried about you, so I'm glad you're doing well, buddy. Joe Spada, or Paul Joe Spada. Who the hell's Joe Spada? I'm looking right at his name. Paul Spada, how are you? Paul Spada was on with us for quite a bit on Sunday on the Stream of Consciousness. Unfortunately, we only got about 8 minutes left tonight, Paul, but I hope you'll join us Sunday. Major League Baseball update is Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And this week, there's no 9 o'clock one-on-one show. But we will have the MLB update, assuming I can speak. And then Sunday, we'll have the Stream of Consciousness at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. But good to have you with us, Paul. John is not sold on Caleb Williams. I believe the Bears have hitched their wagon to this kid, and it's a huge mistake. I've said forever, I'm not sold on any of these kids. I'm not sold on him. I'm not sold on Daniels. I'm not sold on Drake May. I'm probably sold on J.J. McCarthy more than any of those guys. And I'm not hitching my wagon. These teams never learn. The Bears, again, I still think Justin Fields can be turned into something of a competent NFL quarterback. But they've learned nothing from Mitch Trubisky to Justin Fields. These things are all a crapshoot. And nobody ever learns. Nobody ever learns. So take your quarterbacks later. What do you got, Paul? I knew, just kidding. I don't know what LPL is. I really don't know what that LPL is, but you know I had 8 minutes left. LOL. That one I know. Daddy says, Paul Spada, hello. As for Chris F. Grave, we need to talk beach volleyball over tennis. Yes, and Danny, again, I know you're being a bit of a misogynist. We know why you're saying that. I got to get some information on X. I know I keep saying Twitter. I'll try to start saying X, but I don't know if these guys can comment or not. Looking for some people that I can see that have not commented. Chris F. Grave, best to D. Oh my God. Kenny, best to D bit of the night. Best to D bit. I can't do it. Ed, want a prop bet? Blue Sports drink tonight. Orange is the leader for the next show. Okay. Orange. Oh, that's blue. Sorry. Did you bet on that? You can bet on anything in this country. Isn't it great? Don't drink a lot of orange. John Gonzalez, agree. Joe Zampetti. Great to have you with us, Joe. New name, I believe. Always great to have new viewers with us. I'm glad you're with us, Joe. Don't know where you are or who you root for. Maybe you're a Giant fan. Unfortunately, we have 5 minutes left tonight. We might go a couple minutes long. I don't know. I promised my wife I'd be done at 8:30 tonight, though. So John, he agrees with John that Rome is the right pick for the Giants. Give Daniel Jones some weapons. Don't turn this into an NFL show because it's our sports huddle, but great pick. There's a lot of great wide receivers. Giants need wide receivers. If you get a quarterback later that you want to maybe develop or even compete with Daniel Jones, I don't care. But give the man some weapons to give him at least a fighting chance. Paul says, I think you should have Danny Fuller on as a guest. Well, maybe we'll do that. You got to get up at 6 a.m., Danny. John Along, CNN gets that many viewers. Shots fired. You're going to go after NPR next? I'm just saying, that's all. Ed just read. Oh, excellent. So the Twitter comments work. That's awesome, Ed. Thanks for checking that out for me. How did I know? What did it come up? Usually I can see if it's Facebook. So the prop bet one, that was the, it doesn't tell me. I assumed that was a YouTube comment. Excellent. That's good to know. I see a couple comments that are probably going to get me in trouble coming up here. Anyway, where was I? So I just read. So again, we were commenting because the Twitter views have been really well, especially live viewers. There's a ton of live viewers coming through from Twitter right now. And I wondered if you could comment directly from Twitter. And Ed in Columbus has finally solved the mystery for me. So thank you for that, Ed. Always count on those Ohio State guys. Big Ten guys, SEC guys didn't help me out here. Kidding. John, salary cap is needed before it gets out of hand. Yeah, fine. I get it. I mean, it's already out of hand, by the way. Just the fact that everything. Remember the movie Blue Chips? I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The movie Blue Chips with Nick Nolte. Everything in that movie now you could do. You could give a guy a tractor. You can buy a guy's mother a home. You can do whatever you want. Don't shave points. But as far as the recruiting things that these boosters were all out doing, they're all legal now. Do whatever you want. It's a Wild West. But I still say, you didn't comment, though, John, and I guess now I got to go a little long. We still got some comments anyway. I don't want to go too long, though, because I'm tired. Had a long day today. You didn't comment on what I brought up about Brian Kelly. How can Brian Kelly, who left Notre Dame in a contract behind and all his kids behind, is saying there should be a salary cap for kids? The kids, again, I do too. But Brian Kelly's not the right guy. Right? You want me to worry about climate change? Give me somebody other than AOC and Al Gore, who have the biggest carbon footprints of any people I can think of. Al Gore especially, sorry. Don't give me them as a face of your cause. Brian Kelly can't be speaking out about this. And by the way, the NCAA now is that the NIL has no rules. They've made it clear. The NIL has no rules. The transfer portal is wide open. You can transfer as many times as you want. You just can only enter they're going to keep their rules about a spring and fall portal or winter portal, whatever you want to call it. Chris, I think I can choke into this college, into a college topic. Donnell Nixon, brother of Otis, was drafted out of another guy I've contacted. I believe Donnell and Otis both to be on the show, and I haven't ever got any response. Was drafted out of Lewisburg College, North Carolina. Holds a minor league record for most stolen bases in a season with 144. That I knew. I totally winged that one on Leon, whoever his name is. Leon. I knew you did. Good information about Donnell Nixon, brother of Otis. Both guys I've reached out to be on the one-on-one show, by the way. John, does your wife get mad when she catches you running reruns of Green Acres? Watching reruns? My wife does. She doesn't get mad, but if I'm left to my own devices, I do have, you make a joke. I watch a lot of Green Acres. I like the Beverly Hillbillies. I like Have Gun Will Travel. I like Wanted Dead or Alive. I love Perry Mason. What else? So I watched the old crime dramas, Mannix, The Big Valley, Get Smart. I watch all this stuff. My wife says I'm a 64-year-old man with a 12-year-old boy and a 90-year-old man trapped inside me, and we're all fighting for control, all three of us. So we're officially going long tonight. Not too long, though. Just the thought of Butkus running a ball at me is terrifying. I don't know. Who brought that up before? That I don't remember Butkus playing offense in college. If he did, it had to be a scary thought. Maybe he played tight end. I think Mike Ditka might have played both ways. Gotta be careful how I say things. Might have played both ways in college. He's a great tight end at Pitt. He could have played some defense. Jim Brown as well. Yeah, you know what? Jim Brown is another great pick, James, especially all-round athletes. I remember Dick Schaap and others saying that Jim Brown was the best lacrosse player in the history of the sport. And we know what he did in football. And fouled by the great Ernie Davis. I don't remember the name. I wish I could remember the name of the movie. If you haven't seen it, Dennis Quaid plays Coach Scunhaller, however you say his name, who coached both Jim Brown and oh God, I just lost a player's name. Who fouled him at Syracuse? Man, it don't pay to get old. He was also drafted by the Browns, and he died of leukemia shortly thereafter. I can see. Oh my God, I can see the name, and I can't get there. I think James Martin meant stool water. I meant to warn you, James, that your fellow LSU fan is not a big fan of Stillwater, Oklahoma. Oh, sorry, Ed. What do you got there? I did that on purpose to prove Twitter comments work. Oh, the double comment? Was it the double comment? Whatever. I'll go back and look later. I don't know if there's a way I can identify the Twitter comments. Paul wants Rome. I can't say that his last name. On the Pats. Well, then we can trade down. You're not going to get them unless we trade down. So you'd rather trade down, get more collateral, and skip Harrison and take Rome. Listen, I can live with that too. Just don't take Drake May at number 3. Right? John watches the WNBA when I want to see missed fast break layup after missed fast break layup. WNBA's taking it rough tonight, Kenny. Rome's a stud. I agree. Paul agrees. Get Todd Marinovich. He's in Hawaii. Great man. Yeah, you know what? I believe I reached out to Todd too. There's a guy with a cautionary tale to tell as well, on a couple of levels, right? Overzealous parent, and then certainly the pressures of, being the next-rate quarterback at USC and then a next-rate quarterback in the NFL, which he was neither. And the pressures led to a lot of problems. I've tried to get Todd. And if you know Todd, Danny, or you have communication with him, please put me in touch with him. I'm assuming we'd have to do record that interview and then replay it. But I'd love to get Todd on. I know I've reached out to him, probably not for the last few years, about appearing. John says there's a lot of first-round busts at quarterback. Can't narrow it down to one guy. Klingler's another good pick. Schuler, Ware, Winnington. Yeah, we talked about this, that somebody mentioned, maybe it was John, mentioned that somebody on McAfee's show here talked about the fact that it was 50-50. And I would not doubt that that's accurate and maybe even worse. So to me, Rick Meyer, Johnny Manziel, Rick Meyer, you know what I still remember? Everybody talked about what a great, and Bill Parcells wanted to, he left the Patriots because he wanted to shop for the groceries. His famous line, if they want you to cook the dinner, they should let you shop for some of the groceries. Well, if Bill Parcells was left to his own devices, it's very likely he would have picked Rick Meyer ahead of Drew Bledsoe in 91. Right. Welcome back, Mick. He didn't respond about where he's been. Hopefully he's been okay. And, we wish Mick the best. Mickey Delaney, was a mainstay on this show from when we debuted it. Paul is laughing at, I'm not sure what. And be suspended for life. What? Did I miss? What am I missing? Are there comments I'm not seeing, Rick? I'm not sure. Tidbit. Boy, there's a lot of out of context stuff. You mean don't get caught shaving points? Oh, maybe that's what you're talking about. Yeah, I did say don't get caught shaving points. Oh, just don't shave. Oh, I see. Don't get caught shaving points. Yes. Well, now we're in bed with gamblers, gambling sites, and you see what it's wrought. So we're going to get ready to wrap it up here soon, guys, but let me start up the music because we're going to wrap it up. I'll try to get through your comments here. I'm going to do it over the little bit of music so we're winding down here. Where are we here? Your point neglects to say how long Kelly stayed at Notre Dame. I'm not sure that's relevant. I mean, he was there quite a while, 10 years, 11 years. I'm not really sure off the top of my head. But the fact remains he left with money, with time on his contract and for more money. Nobody said you're capped at $7 million when he can get 9.5. Again, I don't have a problem with a lot of this. But it gets hard for me to get on the kids and say the kids shouldn't get something when the coaches or move, right? When the portal started, the NIL started, I said it was going to be awful. It would be the ruination of college football. I'm still not a fan, but I've had to temper my thoughts because of what the coaches and the conferences do. They show no loyalty. Coaches show no loyalty to teams, to universities, to their players, to fans. And now the universities show no loyalty to their conferences and to their fans. Ellie Mae from the Beverly Hillbillies went to your high school. Is that true? Donna Douglas went to your high school? I didn't know you were that old, Jen. Oh, you didn't say the same class. Ernie Davis. Thank you, Rick. Jeez. God. Mind is a terrible thing to waste. I had it until I started talking about the movie. And I can't remember the name of the movie, but check it out. I can tell you that Dennis Quaid starred in it as the coach. Express was the name of the Dennis Quaid movie. Thank you very much. Great story about Ernie Davis. You don't know the Ernie Davis story at Syracuse? Watch it. It's a moving story, and it's a sad story all at the same time. I get single worse. First round pick quarterback, I bet lower than 50%. I would say lower than 50% too. Anyway, guys, it's been a great night. You guys have really, listen, I didn't really want to talk about the portal tonight and coaching news. I had much more fun doing this back and forth with you guys. This is what I love doing. I love this format. It's worked out great. And we've had a ton of live viewers tonight, in and out. We'll have a ton of views on this show, guaranteed. I thank everybody, all you guys, new viewers. I know we have some new guys tonight. We got some fairly new guys like Paul and Danny still, relatively new, but certainly making themselves a part of the fabric of the show very quickly, and we enjoy that. So until Friday, hopefully we'll do the Major League Baseball update after I'm cutting into my mouth a little bit. Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, the Major League Baseball update. We'll have 2 weeks of stuff to catch up on because we didn't really do an update last week. We did our interview with Marty Cordova, who we thank again. And we'll be on Sunday with the Stream of Consciousness as always. And don't forget, the 26th, I'll probably start putting some stuff up this weekend. Tim Worley, former Georgia Bulldog and Pittsburgh Steeler running back, will be our guest on Keith Engle one-on-one with Keith Engle. Get the name right, Keith. Guys, we'll see you later. Have a great night, and enjoy your Thursday. Bye-bye.